Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainashev and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
Going with the old standby.
Yeah,
I can see. Yeah.
I was going to say, you've got questions, we've got JP.
Yeah, we don't have JP. He left the studio.
Oh, drat.
We only ran like an hour over.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good for us. I mean, we get to talking. And we you know... Here's the thing.
We're not just wasting listeners' time. We got good stuff.
Well,
that's
debatable. But no, I think at times we are wasting listeners' time with talk of whatever. But it's heartfelt. It's not pretend. It's we're talking about this stuff because
we're really distracted with this stuff. Yeah,
that's right. It's like hanging out with your buddies, and you're going to hear some of this stuff, but. I think we do a pretty darn good job on getting guests like, we had Glenn Tinseth, we had Charlie Bamforth, we've had any number of, really great guests, and, you're no slouch yourself. I mean, you're
likewise.
You're one of the brewing geeks that, when it comes to, learning how to brew, people should turn to How to Brew from John Palmer. You can pick that book up. You can actually get signed copies of How to Brew from John Palmer in the Brewing Network store. You go to www.thebrewingnetwork.com, and in there you're going to find, signed copies of How to Brew, signed copies of Brewing Classic Styles, which John and I did together.
Yeah.
You're going to find a lot of other good books, and you're going to find great BN Army gear. I'm wearing one of the Hop Grenade shirts. It's actually one of my favorite shirts. You can wear that,
I'm wearing my Brewing Army hoodie.
Right? The hoodie. You can get Brew Strong shirts, which is actually my favorite. The class. They got one with the arm and the mash paddle. Do we have those still?
Still have them, yeah.
Okay, those are sweet. And if you like a little more artsy, if you want a little more, basic, the one that I really like.
Construction, yeah.
It's got the the Brew Strong just in like a military text type of thing on a black shirt, white text. It's sweet. You can wear that anywhere. I really love it.
And coming this week, I've got baseball caps with the same thing. That military Brew Strong. I just haven't gotten the photos done. So
in Milwaukee,
nice.
And that is the hat I wear.
Oh, good.
I love that thing. It's great. It's a little large. Of course, I got a little small head, but those would fit like a Tasty and JP. Of course, they wouldn't buy one, but I'd pay for one for.
They're standard baseball cap things we do that people were asking me from. So if you've bought a BN Army
adjustable strap
baseball cap, it's the same one. Just says Brew Strong.
It's nice because you get these weird hats from like I don't know where they're coming in the world. Maybe they're coming from China. I don't know because maybe they're trying to mess with us. But you get those caps that go really far down your head and push your ears out.
Yeah,
I hate those. This is not one of them. It fits really well. I've got it in my car right now. And when I need a cap, that's the one I wear. My Brew Strong cap. I love that thing. So pick yourself up one of those. Good stuff. All the profits go to the bottom line of the Brewing Network, and that helps pay for this show. And Can You Brew It? And Sunday Session, and that show that should not be named. And the other thing that keeps the show going, the reason you're listening to this show for free is because a guy named John Blickman is paying for this show. He is the sponsor. He's making sure that you get to listen to this show without paying a penny. And
I love him personally. I love him.
I saw that. We were in Milwaukee. I didn't want to say anything, but I saw John and,
love him.
And Justin showing his love for John Blickman. No, I don't want to ruin our relationship with our sponsor at this point, this early in the game.
Yeah.
No, but he's a great guy and a lot of fun. And, you get these engineering types and you think, he's all business. And, he's so focused on producing unique, brewing items that are really, cutting-edge technology, great stuff. Things like, the beer gun.
The false bottom in his pot.
All right. Let's not talk about his pot habit. Let's talk about, just the beer gun. This is the thinking at Blickman is, he took, the concept of counterpressure filling and he rethought it. Everybody was just copying the same old thought over and over. And he was like, well, wait, maybe we can do this a little differently. Maybe, we can fill this thing without the counter pressure thing and do a better job of it and fill bottles with less oxygen, less turbulence, and do something different and totally rethought it. And the same thing on that top tier brew system they have. What problems are people running into? How can we rethink this to do it better? Not just do the same thing over and over again, not just copy somebody else's design, but come up with a new design, something new that will, revolutionize brewing. And I think that's clearly where that guy comes from. And, quality. The quality of the engineering on all these things, well worth what you're going to pay for it. Their company slogan is, something that the Gucci, family had was, quality is remembered long after the price is forgotten. So, I think the prices are pretty reasonable on that stuff, but, and maybe that's because I've seen the quality of the products. But, once you buy one of these things, I think it'll last forever. And if it doesn't, I think you call them up and say, hey, here's the problem I had. And they're re-engineering it and fixing it for you. And
listen, John, forever's gone by, and I'm seeing a little rust on my...
It's been 100 years.
What do you think?
I've worn out my beer gun tip. Send me another.
I think he'd be proud of you if you can use his beer gun enough to wear it down. He'd be proud of you. Yeah,
that's very cool. And John, you use one of the you use a bunch of the Blickman products. I've been dabbling in them myself here, but what's it like brewing on that top tier system?
It's really convenient. I mean, the burners are really well connected to the stand. It's this.
They're connected to the stand. Jesus Christ, John!
No, but they're
of course they're connected
adjustable.
to the stand.
I said well connected. But I mean, the legs of the stand are adjustable. My driveway is not flat in any one area, so.
I'm going to cut you off here. I went to...
But that's a good feature he was about to get to. Brewing on an uneven surface. Adjustable legs.
Yeah, very adjustable legs, very sturdy. You've got 20 gallons of water.
I'm sorry. I love you, John, but I went to Milwaukee, and I saw one of these things in action. And it's not that the burners are well connected to the stand. Those burners, this isn't just like, your typical burner. The flame pattern out of this thing was perfect. And John Blickman was telling me, he said, we put a lot of work into not just, taking somebody else's burner and sticking a burner on there from some wok burner or something. It was, getting a burner manufactured for Blickman that met his goals of quality and flame distribution, And if you run those things, I mean, you can run them down to just like this tiny little whisper, and you still have an even flame all the way across the bottom of the pot. You crank it up, and you still have this nice even flame all the way across the bottom of the pot. I was very impressed by that. That's one of the things I noticed when I was in Milwaukee. I was looking at this thing, I'm like, wow. And one of the guys who was doing the brewing for me when I was brewing, he was like, this is the thing I love. Is like, look, when you adjust this flame, it's, this is really consistent. That's amazing. I mean,
he's got a good needle valve on the burners.
I don't know exactly how he's done it, but I was very impressed with those burners. So it wasn't that they were well attached to the...
In point of fact, the last batch I brewed on my system, I mean, I ran... Yes. I'm doing direct-fired rims. Uh-huh. So I have... using his false bottom, they're a special coin-shaped false bottom.
Right,
I recirculated the wort the whole time. From out through the ball valve down to the pump, which I mounted onto the stand. I mean, getting a couple bolts, mount to the pump right to the stand, works really well. I mean, that's the beauty of this mast that everything connects to, like the burners.
The well-connected burners, yes.
Yep. And then pumped it back up. I was able to do, step mashes, running the pump the whole time, adjusting the flame on the burner, very, very small, just keeping it steady, and then cranking up a little bit to raise the temperature, turn it down again when I got to my next rest. Really convenient. And as you say, the burners are great. And I wanted to say earlier, the false bottom is a really well-designed false bottom. It works so well for a continual rim system. I was really impressed.
Yeah. Well, we probably won't talk about this as much going forward, but I'm really just quite excited. I'm excited getting to know more about the Blickman products and have them as a sponsor. And it's not that necessarily we want you to buy anything from it, but I'm sure it wouldn't hurt. But at the very least, go to BlickmanEngineering.com and search around, take a look at the products they have. It's quality stuff. You buy any of that stuff, you're not satisfied, I'm sure Justin would refund your money.
I just choked on that beer I was tasting. I don't know what was going on the show, but man, I went down the wrong pipe.
So this is something with the beer. I don't know. I don't know who brewed that stuff. No. But definitely, if you do nothing else, go to your local homebrew shop, because that's where Blickman's products are sold through. So you can support your local homebrew shop and support Blickman and support this show at the same time. And
drop them a line, let them know how much you appreciate the show.
Exactly. Send them an email. Don't say, oh, well, somebody else will send the email. No, if you're listening, send an email to Blickman. Say, hey, I appreciate you supporting the show. I appreciate that you've paid for me to listen to the show for free. And that's essentially what's happened here. So, give them some credit for helping a brother out. It's good stuff, and it really is. If you've seen the stuff in person, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you should go check it out. If you're going to be buying a piece of brew gear anyways, consider Blickman. It's good quality stuff.
They're really well designed.
It's going to last you a lifetime. It's got a lot of little subtle things. It's that engineer in Blickman that has designed stuff that works better than. I mean, you'd be surprised the little things that make such a big difference in your brew day. Anyways, I don't want to go on and on about this, but I'm very pleased to have them as a sponsor. I think that indicates the quality of this program.
I love him. I love him.
That's the third time you.
I love John.
That's the quality of this program, right?
Turning myself off, yeah.
All right. No,
so do we have any questions?
Right. So this is our live Q&A show. And we do this every third show or so. So if you get a chance to listen live, what you want to do is sync up with us, and we'll answer any questions you have, because we realized that all the requests are coming into Brew Strong at thebrewingnetwork.com. email your questions in. We'll eventually get to those topics. But if you got the burning need to have a question answered, here's the time to do it. It's a live Q&A show. So, Justin, what do we got?
Coming in loud and clear now, a whole bunch of them from the chat room.
All right.
Let's start off with a good one that's... I like these questions. It's basic, but it's one that we always get no matter how many times we talk about it. And it's about racking. All right, so this comes from he's got your Brewing Classic Styles book, and he's brewed the American Amber Ale. So he's starting to think about bottle conditioning, and he's heard you talk about the no secondary method. We've always, since you've been on the show, you've talked about no secondary.
Right.
Well, so in the carboy, then he wants to know: does this count for those of us who are going to bottle condition? So he's asking: do I want, if I've got it in the carboy and I'm going to no secondary, do I wait for the yeast to go completely clear in the carboy? Is that how I know I'm ready to go?
Right. Absolutely. So, generally during fermentation, you see activity. You'll see the airlock. You'll see some bubbles on the surface. And if you haven't changed the temperature, okay, so here's the other thing. All right, so I got to back up a bit. If you've got a fermenter, the thing is, if you've got a fermenter and you change the temperature, if you make it warmer, you see CO2 will come out and it'll start bubbling and the airlock will start moving, and you say to yourself, "Oh, it's fermenting." No, CO2 is just coming out of solution because you've warmed the liquid. It's not going to, the solubility of CO2 in a warmer liquid, it's all going to come out and you're going to see a bubble. So it's not fermenting, right? All right, so that's one thing. If you move a fermenter and you shake it up, you tend to drive out CO2 as well. All right, so that out of the way. If your fermenter's sitting there and the temperature hasn't changed and you see no bubbles happening and the thing seems like it's pretty much shut down, okay, you've reached the end of fermentation. Things are still happening, and what I like to do is give it another day or two, and during that day or two, the yeast will clean up any other compounds that they can still clean up, and you'll see, the yeast will flocculate out. And within a day or two, most yeast of adequate flocculation will drop to those flocks will all drop to the bottom.
Yeah, okay. You'll see the beer darken at that point because it's not reflecting as much light.
Right. The yeast actually makes the beer look lighter. It'll drop out. If it's a lighter colored beer, you should be able to see through it, all that stuff. So that's when it's ready to either bottle or go to a keg. Even though the yeast looks like it's all dropped to the bottom, there's plenty of yeast left in there.
Okay, that was his follow-up question. Right. He's worried about, it then being enough yeast.
All right, so this whole process I'm talking about, if you pitch the right amount of yeast and provided the right environment for the yeast and the right temperature and all that, for most ales, it's done fermenting within 4 or 5 days. You give it a few extra days, by day 10, I usually go 10 days on these things. I just, you're not running into any real problems. Yeah. By day 10, it's done, okay? And the yeast have dropped clear, and now you can go ahead and put that in the bottling bucket. There's still plenty of yeast in there. Or you can go to a keg. And if you doubt that there's any yeast in there, anybody who kegs, you can wait, 10 days, 2 weeks. You keg your beer. Let it sit in the fridge, and you serve the beer or whatever. If you wait a little while, what's left at the end when you're done, if you've served all the beer, open that keg and look at the bottom. What do you see? You see a slurry of yeast on the bottom, and the beer looked brilliantly clear. There's a lot of yeast. I mean, yeast are really fine little cells, and you can have a lot in there without really, being apparent.
Okay,
and it can still look clear.
Plenty of yeast. Yep. Okay, and then one last question from him is he's worried about checking the gravity while it's in that glass carboy in a sanitary manner. So what's the ideal method that you would recommend that we take a gravity sample?
John, you want to
the wine thief?
The wine thief. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he did say he's seen those wine thieves, and wants to know if really that is the ideal method to do it. If you both would recommend that.
Yeah.
Well, and I used to check my final gravity, and then I got more into ensuring that my yeast was healthy and I was pitching the proper amount. And since I started doing that, I haven't checked my final gravity in the carboy for 8 years or so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's kind of a beginner thing where you don't have enough feel for the process yet. Mm-hmm. You can't tell by looking at it. After 10 days, it's done. Waiting a couple more days, isn't going to take the attenuation any lower. So
unless you got bad fermentation, bad yeast health, a lot of other issues like that, you can. Again, if you see activity has ceased, give it a couple of days and then you're done.
Yeah.
And then, then measure it when you rack it to your keg or your bottling bucket and then measure it. And if it didn't reach attenuation, figure out why that was. If it's sweet, then maybe it was a fermentation problem. If it's not sweet, tastes dry, that's fully attenuated, then it's like a recipe or a process issue as well.
Yeah.
Right. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get into more questions on this live Q&A show. Back after this.
Brew right. Brew smart.
Brew strong. This is Brew Strong.
From the stovetop to a camp burner to some kind of brew stand, most homebrewers follow some version of this progression. With each move, a homebrewer will often have to change a lot, if not all, of their equipment. Until now, Blickman Engineering brings you the top-tier brewing stand, the only brewing stand that grows with you. For example, buy a top-tier floor-standing burner now, and it'll bolt right to your top-tier brewing stand when you're ready for all-grain brewing. The top-tier brewing stand is perfect for 5-gallon to 20-gallon batch sizes. Its modular design is adjustable and accommodates everything from small footprint coolers up to 30-gallon pots. How does the top-tier brewing stand do it? At its core is a strong, heat-treated, and anodized aluminum main post. On all 4 sides are built-in T-slots for the adjustable heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves and beefy burner tiers. The tiers accommodate any manufacturer's pots or coolers up to 21 inches in diameter. Best of all, not only does the top-tier brewing stand grow with your skills and equipment, but it easily knocks down for long-term storage or transport, too. The top-tier brewing stand from Blickman Engineering. Learn more at blickmanengineering.com and to find a local Blickman retailer. And start brewing from the top tier.
Downtown Joe's, located in the historic Oberon building in beautiful downtown Napa, California, offers an award-winning brew pub experience from 8:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. every day. For 15 years at the corner of 2nd and Main, Downtown Joe's has been voted Best Night Spot 7 times and Best Brew Pub for the last 4 years in a row. Brewmaster Colin Kaminsky's handcrafted ales, like his Tail Wagon Amber Ale and Catherine the Great Imperial Stout, are the perfect accent to riverside dining, live music, and a relaxing outdoor patio. Don't miss the Beer of the Month, special rotating taps, and happy hour all day Mondays. Visit downtownjoes.com to make reservations, peruse their extensive calendar of events, or just read more about their fantastic beers. Come enjoy the fine beer, food, and music. Downtown Joe's, the award-winning brew pub where you'll feel at home.
Where were we? You stole an oak barrel from the Mist of Ravenwood, and Lord Zinfandel the Avenger is in pursuit. Do you drop the barrel and run? Hell no.
We need it for a Flanders Red.
I'm gonna cast Pediococcus damnithus on the barrel. Sorry, your ghosts are imprisoned in his winery forever. Ugh, I hate it when Greg's the brewmaster.
This sucks.
What do we have here? Orville Rodenbach?
Buzz off, guy. We got a brew session going. Is that an actual beer?
Yeah, I crafted it. I don't really use the dice anymore. I'm a 10th level beer nerd.
Are you a 10th level beer nerd? Do you get a long-lasting foam stand when you think about wheat malt? Then you're in good company at Northern Brewer. Northern Brewer has all your beer nerd needs, ingredients, equipment, and knowledge at northernbrewer.com. Plus, fast, cheap shipping, only $7.99 for the contiguous USA. And check out Northern Brewer's huge selection of dorky beer kits, including the pre-prohibition lager.
Perfect for steampunk.
And the single hop best bitter.
Now on cast and 10 forward.
Make 10th level at northernbrewer.com.
What's going on, man? Oh my God, it was the best time. We hit like more than 30 breweries and totally the best of the best, you know. Russian River, Firestone, the brewery dudes, 21st Amendment, Lagunitas, friggin' Triple Rock, the Double Daddy guys, Speakeasy, Linden, and Firehouse, Gordon Bees, Drake's, dude, on and on. Ale Industries, Moonlight. It was totally awesome. And it was the first annual. You know, I got to be at the birth, the inception. You only get one first time, baby. What's that? Oh, it was the Brewing Network's first annual Winter Brews Festival. Live music, great food. Oh man, it was Saturday, January 30th. You really should have gone. Check out thebrewingnetwork.com on tap to see what you missed, or did you?
The first annual Brewing Network Winter Brews Festival is coming up January 30th. Don't miss it.
Hilo, what's it feel like?
Take awesome and multiply it by 2.
Yeah! Spraying live beer radio all over your face.
Can't get any better than this, baby!
It's the Brewing Network.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're doing a live question and answer show. We do this every few episodes. Really, just in an effort to keep up with the number of requests that come in at BrewStrong at thebrewingnetwork.com. If you got show ideas that you want us to tackle, send them in there. It may take us a year to get to it, but
we always like hearing from you, though.
That's right. Yeah, we love it. I mean, we got the best listeners ever. People with really thoughtful questions, and they've done the homework, and the homework's lacking, and then they turn to Brew Strong and say, give me the course on understanding this. All right, what do we got coming up next? If you're listening live, the Brewing Network's the only beer radio that you can actually interact with. That these shows are done live, and we actually you join the chat room. Go to thebrewingnetwork.com, click chat, and you can actually participate. You can ask questions. Justin will, tell you his personal problems.
Yeah, all these questions today have come through from the live chat, so they weren't premeditated at all. Just people listening and having questions. Right. All right, Jameel and Palmer, this comes up a lot, so help us put this to rest. This listener wants to know about making session beers out of big beer, and I think he means out of big beer type recipes. He's talking about Pliny and Tasty's Janet's Brown. Is it possible to come close to the originals without the high doses of alcohols? Now, he goes on to say, just to set it up for you, that he has heard about the main answer he always gets is just to mash hot. And he's not satisfied with this answer. Right. He also, based on things in your book, Jameel, like your Scottish 70, that the way you adjust for gravity is only to adjust the base malt, and he's concerned about what about all the other malts? What about the crystals, the roasts, the carafas? So that's the whole setup for you guys.
Well, and I think he's asked this question a number of times. In a number of different aspects, and it's a tricky question because part of it is, all right, so I have an aircraft carrier. How do I make a 16-foot runabout? It's like, well, you don't just downsize an aircraft carrier and make it into a runabout. Yeah, it's they're different types of craft, and really the best runabout is going to be designed from the ground up as a runabout. The best aircraft carrier is going to be designed up from the ground up as an aircraft carrier. Now, I think what the person's trying to capture is, that overall feel or concept of that beer in a smaller beer with less alcohol. And I can appreciate that because I like a lower alcohol beer. The difficulty comes in, now one thing, all right, if you're adjusting a recipe for efficiency, let's say there's a recipe in Brewing Classic Styles and they're all done to 70% efficiency and you're getting 80% efficiency. What you do is you adjust the base malt. You just adjust down the thing that really derives the alcohol. If you're within...
Majority of the fermentable.
Yeah, if you're within 10%, 15%, you just adjust down the fermentables, you'll be fine. If you're getting wildly different efficiencies, or you're trying to take a 1.1 or a 25 Plato beer and scale it down to a 6 Plato or 7 Plato beer or 8 Plato beer, like a mild, you're trying to take a barley wine, turn it into a mild, then perhaps you need to start looking at the specialty grains. Maybe. And here's the reason why you don't. Here's the reason why in Brewing Classic Styles, the Scottish line of beers, you don't mess with the specialty grains, you just mess with the base grains. If you take a look at any recipe, any decent recipe for big beers, what you're going to find is they don't go with, they don't scale up to, wild amounts of crystal malt. Right, exactly. They just increase the base malt. Because if you increase those specialty grains, you're going to end up with a syrupy, overdone, excessive, undrinkable beer. Right. You don't scale up the specialty malts. You really just scale the base malts. So if you look at all those recipes, you'll see that really the best big beers are ones, they've got a lot of, and even, a number of big beers, they'll use simple sugars. They'll use table sugar, and really it's just to get alcohol and not add more flavor. They get to the point where if you're adding more base grain, that's too much flavor. And it becomes cloying. It becomes overwhelming. You need something that gets out of the way. It's a rice syrup, or it's a dextrose, or whatever it might be. You're adding that just to get alcohol and stay out of the way of adding too much flavor. So when you're taking a big beer and you're scaling down to a small beer, you keep those specialty grains the same. Bittering. The thing on the BU-OG ratio that you need to tweak is that when you start out with a high amount of sugars and you ferment this down, attenuation for a given yeast is going to, let's say you're attenuating to 70%, right? Average percentage. And you've got a 100-point beer, you're going to get down to about 30 points. If you're doing a smaller beer, and that 30 points needs to be balanced with some bittering and some hop character. If you're doing a smaller beer, the ratio of really the finishing sweetness to bittering is what's important, not really the starting gravity. Now, they tend to be related. So, if you're tracking the two, I think you're pretty close, but you'll probably be a little too bitter when you go from something like a barley wine to a mild. As far as, going to a hotter mash temperature, the only reason for that is to just preserve some body. It really doesn't preserve any sweetness. It just preserves, body. And, that's fine. If you want a sweetness in a beer, if you want to mimic, like a barley wine has a residual sweetness, and mimic that in something like a mild, that's tricky. You're going to have to, you're going to either have to get a yeast that doesn't attenuate very well at all, or you're going to have to feed back some sugar into the beer, like something like when they do Southern English Brown, an English Southern English Brown, they actually sweeten it back with some sugar, and you'd have to do something like that, either an unfermentable sugar like a Splenda or something like that, or sugar and then pasteurize it or something like that so it doesn't ferment out. That's the only way you're going to get that kind of character. I don't know. And John, you got more to add to that? That's about all I can think of at this point.
No, I think those are very good points. I mean, you're more the recipe guru than I am. As you were saying, I wouldn't really go to a higher mash temp if you're trying to make a session beer out of a big beer. You still want the full attenuation. The higher mash temp would be if you're going to go for a more of a low alcohol version, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Where you're trying to, you've reduced the total amount of fermentables to a point where you need to go to a little higher mash temp, or add some maltodextrin powder to bump up the body of the beer, mm-hmm. Or something like that. You made a good point with the BU to GU ratio on trying to scale down the bitterness perception. That's a good point. So I think you answered that well.
Well, if we haven't answered it, send in a request to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com, and maybe
really that's a good topic for a show there.
Yeah, maybe we do a show scaling big beers down, scaling little beers up. Mm-hmm. How do you make an imperial mild? How do you make a mild barley wine?
All right, another good question that came through to fine our beers. Filtering, fining. This listener wants to know, should one avoid fining a beer post dry hopping? Which I thought's a good question because the whole idea with dry hopping is to get those kind of hop particulates in there, right? And then the idea of fining is to clear particulates out. So, Palmer, you already jumping on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I've dry hopped with pellets, sometimes I'll have a beer that just won't clear, and so I will find those. I use isinglass or something like that, and that really, I don't find any real, regrettable loss in hop character from doing that. I just get a clear beer,
I guess the particulates are different than what you'd normally... the good stuff of the hops is not the same thing you're finding out.
Well, but...
Right.
Yeah, all right, so, the, particulates, the word particulates describe chunks of matter that are floating around. So what you tend to get from dry hopping is a haze, and most dry hop beers are hazy.
Okay.
And my understanding is that's from the tannin, hop
polyphenols. Yeah.
Hop polyphenols that are floating around in there, and you get this haze.
So not accurately described by particulates, like I said.
Not a bad descriptor, but so I think technically that's more what you're looking at, and really fine particulate matter that's forming this haze forming. And I think, for me, I've never fined a beer after dry hopping, so I really don't know what the result would be. It sounds like John has actually done it, so he knows what the result would be. For me, when I dry hop a beer, I think of it as, well, dry hop beer is going to be hazy. Why would you complain about that? Please, that's part of the attraction. I know that it's been dry hopped. When I'm given a dry hop beer that isn't hazy, I question it, which is kind of weird, I guess. But I think, well, if it's not hazy, then either you didn't really dry hop it enough, because I don't see the haze in it. So for me, it's a little different. But if John says it doesn't affect the flavor, then doesn't affect the flavor.
Well, I think, kind of like Mike McDowell says, you adjust your recipe to compensate.
Right. So Mike will filter his beers, but what he'll do is jack things up before he filters them. So his concept of a recipe will be account for filtering. My concept of a recipe won't account for filtering. Yeah. So,
and I was listening to our Q&A session with Charlie today on the way home, and he was talking about cask ales. They add finings and dry hop in the cask, and that's all done then.
Yeah, but the hop character in those beers is so light. I mean, if you're talking a West Coast dry hopping, right. I'm telling you, if you don't have a layer of resin on your tongue after you drink it, then they didn't dry hop it enough.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, but the haze is primarily due to hop polyphenols and complexity with proteins and so on. If you find and you drop some of that out, you're not really going after the hop oils that are giving you the aroma and flavor that you're looking for. So you may lose a little bit, but you're not really targeting those compounds with the findings.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take another short break, and when we come back, more of your questions answered live here on Brew Strong. Back after this.
Keep your carboy cap on. This is Brew Strong. We'll be right back.
Hey, what are you doing, man?
Writing a review of WLP 400.
What? You're reviewing yeast?
Yeah. White Labs has home brewer reviews of all their strains. Are you new to these interwebs? Check it out.
That's awesome.
White Labs, your source for great yeast, invites all brewers to visit whitelabs.com to read and write your own reviews of all their yeast strains. Get real-world tips and tricks from other brewers who have made the most of their vials and post your own experiences. It's another way White Labs brings you closer to the best yeast on the planet.
And send. There you go.
You misspelled flocculate, dude.
What?
White Labs. It's all in the vial.
Hi, this is Push from the Brewing Network, and I want to tell you about the Brewmaster's Warehouse and how you can get 10% off your next order. I'm a pretty techie guy, but I've never seen an online store like this. It's awesome. Go to brewmasterswarehouse.com and click on Brew Builder. You can whip up a custom recipe so easily even Sven could do it. Seriously, it's slick. You can share your recipe with your own logo and notes to the Brewmaster's database if you want. And the best part, it keeps a running tally of the beer you're building while you're doing it. Then, bam, click Buy Recipe, and your cart is filled and ready to go with helpful suggestions in case you forgot something. This thing is amazing. Brewmaster's Warehouse is run the way a home brewer would do it, with great service, fast turnaround, and $6.99 flat rate shipping. Brewmaster's Warehouse and the Brew Builder blew me away. Check it out today at brewmasterswarehouse.com. I'm serious. And don't forget to put BNARMY in the discount code box for 10% off your order. Check out brewmasterswarehouse.com. Cheers.
BN Army members, are you looking for a discount on hops? Keep listening. Nico's Homebrew Supply at nicobrew.com has hops by the ounce and by the pound. Choose from varieties like Amarillo, Centennial, East Kent Goldings, Hallertauer, Simcoe, Summit, Tomahawk, Warrior, Willamette, and more. And adding new varieties all the time. Many for less than $20 a pound. Whether a couple ounces at a time or an 11-pound bag, all hops are shipped vacuum sealed and frozen straight to you. Nico's Homebrew Supply offers store-wide $5 flat rate shipping. shipping and won't waste your money on unnecessary overhead or advertising. They're going bare bones and passing the savings on to you. The staff at Nico's Homebrew Supply loves to brew and is committed to keeping homebrewing affordable and accessible to anyone who wants to join in this great hobby. And for a limited time, use coupon code BNARMY at checkout for a Brewing Network discount. Visit nicobrew.com. That's NIKO brew.com for your hops and more. nicobrew.com, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
Woohoo! We're still awake. We're still working on knocking out these shows at 10:45 at night.
How the time flies.
10 pints of Chad's Schwartz beer.
Yeah. All right,
next question.
All right, here's a quick one for you. I've got Jamil's Dark Strong in the primary, and it's been sitting for 4 weeks on the yeast since I pitched it. The yeast is a repitched WLP 530 from a Golden Strong. How soon should I pull it off the yeast?
Well, it should be done fermenting by now. It should have been done fermenting 2 weeks ago. If you see no activity, then it's done. Pull it off the yeast. If it's
keg that puppy,
it hasn't attenuated enough, then you got some other problem. So maybe go ahead, take a wine thief, sanitize it really well, get a sample, and if it's not anywhere, see, here's another thing. All right, so people go, your recipe says it should reach 10:10, and it's at 10:13. It hasn't attenuated enough. It's horrible. I need to, pitch more yeast. What do I need to do? It's like, if it's 10:13, 10:10, good enough. If it doesn't taste overly sweet, then it's fine. It could be 10:15, and if it doesn't taste overly sweet, that's fine. The target number is really for, a certain brewery. So, maybe, mashing at 154 on your brew system is like mashing at, 152 on my brew system, or, 158 on my brew system. So, the first time you brew something, if it doesn't attenuate all the way and it tastes right, then okay, maybe I'll back off on the mash temperature a couple of degrees, and you'll be right in the same number. You can have a higher finishing gravity with the right taste, and that's okay. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So if it tastes right, you're done. Go
I
ahead,
like
Jim.
that answer.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Simple.
That's the thing.
John agrees with me.
Yeah. Then
again.
And it was good. Okay, could Jamil share some tips for the step-up method of yeast starters? And the listener says, I've got a 2-liter limit on the growler that I use for starters. So I step up with a 1 liter, and then a few days later, another 1 liter.
So, start out, don't do anything smaller than a liter. And, within 12 to, 18 to 36 hours, 18 to 30 hours, you've got all the growth you're going to get. And at that point, you can go ahead and crash chill, let all the yeast flocculate out, decant the liquid, and go ahead and add more starter wort to it. You can wait longer until it's really gone all the way through the whole process. You don't really gain anything. And once, a day and a half has gone by, if everything was okay initially, after a day and a half has gone by, you've got all your growth. Chill it, let it sit in the fridge for a day or two. You want all those yeast to completely drop out. You don't want to just get the most flocculent yeast. When you chill this, if you're impatient, and the yeast don't, and you only take the yeast that drop out really quickly, and you pour off some yeast in suspension. You're pouring off the ones that really attenuate well, and you're only collecting the ones that don't attenuate well. And you're going to end up with a less attenuation in the yeast that you pitch. So give it plenty of take more time in letting it settle than you do in letting it grow.
Yeah.
That's a critical step.
Yeah,
Once
give yourself enough time to make that starter so you can let it settle out.
Yeah, if you're going to step starter, give yourself a week or two, and let it completely flocculate out, decant off the spent wort, and then add more wort. And that's all you really need to do. There comes a limit to how much growth you can get with a given amount of wort. So at some point, what you need to do is, if you've grown up a bunch of yeast, you can't have a big pile of yeast and add 1.5 liters of wort. You need to siphon off some of that yeast, decant some of that yeast to another container, and just use a starting amount and then grow that up. So that's the only other factor in step starting. You just can't have 10 vials or packages worth of yeast sitting in 1 liter of starter wort, because you're not going to get any growth. You're not doing anything at that point.
All right. The chat room is making me laugh tonight. I'm trying to keep a straight face for you, Jamil. It's very serious questions here.
You're distracting me there.
The chat room.
You are.
I'm telling them, don't make me laugh. Jamil is counting on me to keep a straight face in here.
How serious a show this is.
Yes. All right, here's a question.
This is our most serious show, you realize.
Isn't that right, John Palmer?
That's right.
We're very serious.
Yeah.
I think Palmer's huffing glue over there is how serious he is.
No, just having another beer.
All right, here's a question that may stem from our most recent session where we talked to a brewer in Florida who's using cedar to wood age their beers. Mm-hmm. So this brewer says, I've recently added some Spanish cedar along with my dry hops. And the pieces of cedar are floating on the top of my beer in secondary. Every day when I rouse the fermenter to resuspend the dry hops, I'm splashing quite a bit over those pieces of wood. Should I be concerned about head retention or oxidation? This is his question.
Now, see, I've used a lot of Spanish fly in my beer.
Is that right?
Yeah. Which helps the wood rise. But I really haven't used any Spanish cedar. My take on it is, if you're splashing a lot of beer around, once fermentation is pretty much done, that's generally not a good thing.
Yeah.
But oxidation would be the issue versus what was my other option? Oxidation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he said he was trying to rouse his hops. I don't know why
you do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's any real point in doing that unless they're floating in a bag on the top and they're not getting down in there. But if they're immersed, if they're submerged, they're doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
A general swirl maybe to distribute the alpha a little bit, but they're diffusing. I mean, there's really no need to swirl, I don't think.
I'd agree with that. I think that's a good answer. Maybe give it a swirly.
Yeah.
Oh, the good old days. I haven't had a swirly in a while. All right, let's see. Here's another good question. I have an Imperial Stout I brewed the weekend before Thanksgiving. It started at 11:20. I used WLP 007, and it's not at 10:30 yet, and still in the primary. Is there any need to go to secondary, or can I just go straight to keg?
Straight to keg, I'd say.
I don't know why he's telling me what it's not at. It's not at 10:30, he says. But
what's it at?
It doesn't say. Maybe he meant to say now it's at 10:30. He just mistyped. Started at 11:20. Now it's at 10:30. That's pretty far down, isn't it? That's time to keg.
If you go 11:20 to 10:30, then...
Yeah. So that must have been what he meant to
Damn straight. You fermented the crap out of that thing.
That thing is ready to go.
Yeah.
Wish you had it at Thanksgiving dinner. You would have dealt with your family better.
Right. If you're at 1080, then you
1080 to 1030 may
figure something. Or if you've gone 1020 to or 120 to 1080, then you're in trouble. But if you've gone 1120 to 1030, I mean, look at the attenuation percentage of that is pretty significant. So you're done.
Did well.
And if you don't like that it finished at 1030, then don't start at 1120. And if you want to start 1120 and get lower, then you need enzymes and some serious yeast.
Okay. Beer tasting question from one of our listeners in the chat. Is there a hoppy off flavor that resembles freezer burn? Said it's not hop freezer burn, but it's in the really hoppy beers that I've brewed lately, like a Pliny clone, a Janet's Brown clone. They were different beers and different batches of hops. So it's this flavor characteristics that he's describing as like a freezer burn flavor. You know anything about that?
You know, I wonder if that isn't oniony, garlicky kind of character.
Yeah, I don't know what flavor to ascribe to freezer burn.
Bad. Tell you that.
Well, and it's part of the problem of evaluating beer through email descriptions. It's kind of like, well, if you let me taste it, I could tell you what I think and what it might be. But, through that description, what I would say is, maybe it was one of those, stanky kind of that, or maybe it's, a caddy kind of thing. I don't know. It's really, I don't know, what kind of perception the listener has and what experience and what, what they may favor or, dislike. So that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too bad JP wasn't here. He can answer that one.
He knows about freezer burn flavors. All right, here's a nice random question for you, Jamil. What percentage of melanoidin should I put in a Bo Pills?
You should read the book.
Available in the store now.
Right. Go to the brewingnetwork.com. Go to, /store, and you'll find signed copies of Brewing Classic Styles in there.
Okay.
All right. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll finish up with our live Q&A. Back after this.
Brew smart.
Brew strong.
This is Brew Strong.
When Blickman Engineering set out to design a great brewing stand, they knew it had to be strong, adaptable, and last for a lifetime. The top-tier brewing stand is now proudly available at BlickmanEngineering.com. It grows with your brewing skills and equipment. Start with 5-gallon coolers on its heavy-gauge stainless steel shelves. Then move all the way up to 30-gallon pots on the high-output burner tiers. Speaking of burners, the custom Blickman Engineering top-tier burners are extremely powerful, efficient, and amazingly quiet. They have safety stops to center your pot, and they'll last a lifetime and won't rust. The top-tier brewing stand allows virtually infinite combinations from traditional gravity systems to 2 tiers to completely horizontal. Configure your stand the way you want and have the freedom to change it at any time in the future. Your brewing stand should adapt with you, not force you to learn a new process. Visit BlickmanEngineering.com today to configure your top-tier brewing stand and to find a local Blickman retailer. You'll be surprised with all the flexible features and the competitive price. Start brewing with Blickman from the top tier.
Nico, listen, our lawyers said that we had to do this for 1 hour, and after this, we don't have to talk to each other for 3 more months to the next meeting.
Kids, come on, let's get out of here.
I'm supposed to have more lines. I'm the professional. Hey, it's Sully.
And I'm Nico.
And we opened the 21st Amendment 9 years ago at 563 2nd Street in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park, to make great beer and have a great time doing it.
That's right, because to us, the 21st Amendment is more than just the right to make beer. It's the right to experiment, to be innovative, and just do things differently. And so now, we're putting our craft beer in cans.
That's right, cans. You can find our world-famous Hell or High Watermelon Wheat Beer and Brew Free or Die IPA throughout California and Alaska.
And now it's also available on draft at select accounts in the Bay Area.
So next time you're at your local neighborhood pub or good beer store, be sure to ask for 21st Amendment in cans.
Because everyone likes it in a can.
Tasty crack cans.
Tasty crack cans.
Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and freshest ingredients and the best customer service in the business. Cut hours off your brewing sessions by using one of our 11 varieties of famous Williams malt extract. Our Williams Belgian Pale Extract is mashed with pure Belgian two-row malt and a small percentage of Belgian wheat malt for an authentic Belgian character you just can't get from other extracts. Or check out our unique fermenters, 2.5-gallon kegs, paintball tank-based draft beer equipment, bottling aids, and much more. We even have our own line of precision hydrometers. Go to WilliamsBrewing.com to browse our vast selection. That's WilliamsBrewing.com. Orders placed by 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time ship the same day. Brewing is easy. The Williams way.
This is www.thebrewingnetwork.com.
Sit down next to it, grab yourself a paper towel, and watch those yeast have sex.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're answering questions in a live Q&A. So going back to the question on Mellanoid malt and Bohemian Pils, I was a little flippant on my answer on that before. And the reality is, if you're brewing a great Bohemian Pilsner, you don't add any Mellanoid malt. So, the recipe is very simple. You would just go with a high quality Continental Pilsner malt and some Saaz hops and a good yeast and good process, and that's going to give you the best Bohemian Pilsner you can make. Now, in brewing classic styles, it includes some Carapils, some dextrin malt. And really, the only reason that includes that is because, that was the most award-winning recipe. So that's why that's included in there. If I was to do it today, I don't throw any Carapils in there. It's, adjust your mash temperature, and you can do just as well with that. So, the only reason you might consider adding Mellanoid malt, I guess, is because you feel like, well, they do, decoction brewing, and you feel like, well, you're going to replace decoction brewing with Mellanoid malt. Well, if you're going to do something like that, then, if you're really concerned about it, then, and you feel like decoction gets you that, then go ahead and do decoction brewing. If, other than that, if you want to add Mellanoid malt, you'd add less than 5%. Would be your total. I wouldn't exceed 5%. That's a possibility. Check out BYO, Brew Your Own. I write the style profile column for that, and I discuss all that in there. And I think I did Bohemian Pils recently. You check it out. You can actually subscribe to Brew Your Own from the thebrewingnetwork.com. And they share a portion of the fee when you sign up with the Brewing Network. It goes right to the bottom line. And if you want some other detail, you can check our archives of the Jamel Show. Go back and we did Bohemian Pilsner as one of those shows. Me and my Cajun brewing brother John Plissé, and we talked about that as well. So hopefully that's a little better answer. I think I was, a little tired when I answered.
It's a long night.
Yeah.
It's a long night of programming.
It is.
Well, he is happy about that. He's brewing one next week. So,
okay.
So you helped a brother out.
All right.
Okay. Last question of the night from the chat room here. And Palmer, I think you can help out with this pretty well.
Okay.
It's kind of right up your alley. This listener is requesting that we address direct fire mash tuns. He wants to know, is it really important to use a hot liquor tank with a heat exchanger if you're just going to recirculate anyway. So what do you think about that?
Okay, so he's asking the difference between rims versus HERMs?
I guess so. If I think he's
direct fire. So when we were talking about you setting up your new system, you were going to direct fire the mash tun instead of doing a HERMs or a rims.
Right.
You were going to direct fire it and recirculate right there. And my take on it was, well, when I direct fire my mash tun, I get a bunch of grain particles, lifting up off the bottom, and
that was a problem with my system initially. I was using a false bottom that had the 3/16 diameter holes all through it, and I did notice a lot of grain moving through the hoses, to the pump, and the pump got clogged at one point. Maybe I might have been recirculating too fast, but I don't think so. It was a fairly gentle flow. But in all honesty, I really did notice an improvement using the Blickman false bottom the second time around. I think just due to the nature of the slots, it lets less particles through than the holes did. And when I've used false bottoms in the past, I've usually used fine holes, and really I used to use copper manifolds for a long time, where it was just a narrow hacksaw width, and I usually had very few problems with grain clogging from doing any kind of recirculation. So I think the type false bottom, the type of that really played an important role in my ability to direct fire the recirculation. The other thing to keep in mind when you're doing a rims or a HERMs is to measure the temperature of the wort as it comes off the heater. Whether you're doing a HERMs, you need to check, put a thermocouple or check the temperature as it's exiting your heating point, because you don't want to start denaturing your enzymes by running it through your heating source. So in my case with the direct fired rims, I'm measuring the temperature of the wort right after it comes off the false bottom, as it's exiting the pot. And I would add heat for 5, 10, 15 minutes depending on the how high I was going, and the wort temperature never exceeded my set point. And and as soon as I saw the temperature hit my set point, I could turn down the flame, and it just kept recirculating, and the temperature of the wort didn't go above that. Maybe 1 or 2 degrees, but not 5 degrees, which would have greatly affected my the arrest I was shooting for.
Yeah, I think if I think regardless of the false bottom, well, and some are going to let through more grain than others, and you get some grain, slipping through one way or another around the sides or through the slots, and then if you overfire it, you're gonna, you could get some scorching. So that's one of the, of those grain particles. But otherwise, if you're in control, those grain particles could pass through and go back around. Eventually, you shouldn't see any more grain particles coming through. If you do, then that's a big issue. But eventually, you should set the filter bed there, and you should It should be okay. But I'd be real careful of applying too much heat that way. I like the HERM system just because. Yeah, it's just easy and brainless, and that's me.
Easy and brainless.
That's right.
Like my women. I do have one last question, guys, and I need to preface it. This is one of our newer and more lubricated listeners, but she's been hanging out all night long and has asked this question several different ways, and in an effort to prove that we do try to address everything, I'm going to ask the question for you guys, all right? Whether or not you have a real answer, I don't know. But here we go. Valicious in the chat room wants to know.
It's got to be a dude posing as well.
I don't know. But this listener has read that hops contain phytoestrogens that trick the body into producing more estrogen. She says
that's why brew dudes have big boobs. Yes.
Right. She says my body produces next to zero estrogen, and this added effect can actually result in increased breast growth. She says this is important. She sounds very serious about the topic, actually, and so I'm putting it to you guys. Are there phytoestrogens in hops that?
Yeah, there's everything you consume, everything you put in your body has some sort of effect on various functions of the body. I would not count on hoppy beers growing significant breast mass. I think the reason that you see a lot of beer dudes with good sized breasts on them is just that they're fat. And, the fat tissue tends to deposit there as well. So you can pack on some pounds, and beer will help do that, but I don't think it's necessarily the hops. I think if, you're lacking estrogen, then, estrogen supplements might be, a better way to go.
Yeah,
not as fun, though.
My answer to the question is that I have no
drink
idea
beer
if phytoestrogens are in there.
You have no idea?
Drink beer as well. Certainly won't hurt. Certainly makes all the guys that are hitting on you far more attractive.
Well, she's pointing out that here's where it gets weird for me, right? Here's where it just gets into maybe missing the point. Yeah. She says, over the last, I started drinking IPAs a lot over the last year, and I grew 2 cup sizes. And my thing is, could it just be the calories in beer and the actual consumption of beer and not necessarily having...
I've grown 2 cup sizes.
In the last year also, right?
Yeah. So, I don't necessarily think that's it. It might be a coincidence. I really don't think you're going to get, that significant just off of beer. I think in a controlled experiment, if that was the case, they'd be injecting women with, hops. Instead of cutting them open and putting bags of silicone or saline in there.
A controlled experiment would be a good idea. I mean, if we were to go over there and
let's get some women
breast size,
let's get some beer,
beers and compare breast size after
and let's
beers.
Drink until we see changes in their breasts. I think
it will be called the Brewing Network's Breastathon 2010.
I think, this is some serious research we could do.
It would have to be a blind test.
Yes.
Seriously, I think...
consult your doctor.
Yeah, I think it's more, a coincidence than anything else. I think it may have some small effect, but I don't think it's, 2 cup size effect.
Okay.
It would be minor at best. So... And I think it's just happy coincidence.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm happy about it, but,
Lest any of you think we avoid the issues on these programs, there you go.
No, we'll
thank you for your question.
As long as it's beer-related in some bizarre way.
We'll take
Works
it.
for me.
All right, that's your Q&A for today, guys.
All right. I really enjoy these Q&A shows because we got some of the smartest listeners, I think.
We get some interesting questions.
Yeah, well, and what a great set of questions, really. In depth and detail, it's not, how do I boil? Where do the hops go? Do I put them in the kettle?
I know you deleted all my questions.
I hate all those stupid questions. I really do. I just respond. I think you want to get yourself a copy of How to Brew by John Palmer, and that'll pretty much read that book. And then if you still have this question, come back to me. I'd be glad to help you. And I don't mind the question where people have worked and they've put some effort into it, and then they got these are some well thought out questions. I think we got some smart listeners who put a lot of hard work into it, and I love it. I think it makes me think. And there's questions that people ask that I've never thought of, and I'm like, wow, yeah, boy, how dim-witted am I that I never thought about that. That's some good stuff. So good questions. Good answers, John.
Thank you. You too. I'm tired.
I am too. It's been a long day. I mean, we started this thing, God knows, 5 hours ago? All right. Yeah. 5 hours of Brew Strong. Good stuff. And, if you enjoy this show and you think it's worth your listening to, then you want to thank the people who made this possible. And that's the Brewing Network, for one, especially.
Yep.
And
check out
also,
the shop.
Check out the brewingnetwork.com/store. That's where, the bulk of the support comes from. But also, the sponsor of the show, John Blickman Engineering, BlickmanEngineering.com. Go there, check out. They got a lot of fine products, great products, really well built.
Yep.
Things that are going to make your brewing happy. And, they paid for this show, so you don't have to. So if you can go out there and, support them, we'd appreciate it. Tell them how much you love the show. Give them an email. And, while you're at it, buy yourself a hoodie, hat, Brew Strong hat, Brew Strong shirt. Next time I see you, I'll tell you how much I love your shirt and tell you how much I love your hat. You can find them at the Brewing Network store. And all the profits go to the bottom line here and keep all this programming going. Brew Strong, Can You Brew It, the Sunday Session, and that show that shouldn't be mentioned, Lunchmate. All right. And if you find us on Facebook, John Palmer, myself, Justin, we all love to friend you. We'll see you there.
Sure.
Until then, Brew Strong.
Brew Strong, everybody.